everyone again. I'll start by introducing. My name is Paula Atkinson, Manager for Diversity and Community Outreach with the Global Alzheimer's Platform. And I'm so happy that you have decided to join me today on this discussion, Collaborative Engagement, Mobilizing Community Partners for Inclusive Research. I'm so excited that I have a panel of leaders in their own right. I'm just going to call on their name and just ask them to introduce themselves. So I want to start with Tia Delaney Stewart, please.
Hello, and thank you for that. I am Tia Delaney Stewart. I am a registered nurse, and I am representing the Alzheimer's Association California Southland chapter. I'm currently their Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and I'm really excited to be part of this conversation today, and thank you for GAP for allowing me to have a seat at the table and a voice.
Yes, and Constantina Mizis, please.
Hello, my name is Constantina Mizis, and I am the CEO of the Latino Alzheimer's and member of the Soros Alliance based in Chicago, Illinois, and I'm so happy to be in this panel.
And last but certainly not least, Dr. Renarda Jones.
Thank you so much, Paula. Yes, I'm Dr. Renarda Jones. I am the founder and executive director of a public benefit organization called Diverse Research Now, and I'm very happy to be a part of the conversation.
Hey, Dr. Renarda.
Hi, Tia.
Yes, so I'm really excited, ladies, for you to join me on this conversation. I will start by saying that I was so excited to see us having this conversation about community partners, especially when I'm working with my sites and we're talking about engaging with diverse communities. I find that it's critical that we reach out to community partners, right? I was about to dive into the conversation, so let me pull back. And if anything, let's start off with my first question I want to throw out to all of you. Please share with us in your experience, what role should community partners play in the recruitment process for clinical trials? And are there ways to empower them to take a more active role?
I'll start with the first thing that kind of stood out for me with this question. And it was like, I think in the beginning, we really should remove the word should, because to me, it's very presumptive. I think we all know that all community partners are not created equal. And so I think in the beginning, we really have to take that step back and first really have a clear understanding why that community-based organization was even, created, because it's bigger than like folks love to regurgitate their mission and their vision of the organization, but really understanding that most of these CBOs were started because of a gap, right, of a need of how people were like personally impacted. So they created this CBO. And so maybe they're not even aligned with clinical trials and research. But if they are aligned, right, then I think it's the first step is always what we talk about is asking them how we can support them in that journey. And I think doing the community a favor is really like level setting, providing that ground level education on the why. Because I think sometimes we assume that folks know the why, you're a Black organization in the Black community, so you should be helping Black people. And they're not even connecting the dots with Alzheimer's disease and dementia and how it's related to the Black community, right? And so I think doing that first, and then when we're thinking about their capacity, remembering and reminding ourselves that capacity in some of these organizations don't exist. So if we want them to be on this recruitment journey with us and to empower them, I think empowerment is also equated to fiscal support. And so we need to remind ourselves that time is valuable. And big pharma organizations like the Alzheimer's Association, researchers, their financial support from them is important. And so thinking about looking at capacity funding when we are doing these grants and proposals so that folks have that support. And then last but not least, I'll just say, taking them along with us on that journey and staying flexible and agile, because their needs and capacities change, right? And so I think if we really want to have community-based organizations part of this journey with us, we have to really step back and say, okay, are you aligned? And if you are aligned, how can we support you? And as we continue to support you, have to be flexible, and that support may look different.
Thank you so much, Tia. Constantina, Renarda, do you have, I think Renarda, you have something to add?
Sure. Yes. So for me, I don't per se think that community-based organizations should help with recruitment. It should be more focused on bringing awareness and health education, because I do believe that community engagement is a step before recruitment, and it's necessary and essential to make a change. So that's where the community-based partners can come in, and help with that education piece and that awareness piece. And the research staff, man, they can be there. They should be there to follow up with the recruitment piece. And we have to remember that community partners, they're invested in their community. Their focus is their community, and so they're gonna be protective of that community. So to get them invested is to invest in their community and listen to them, and hear the ways that you can invest in their community and follow through with that investment.
Thank you for that. You are so right that it's presumptuous for us to say should participate in the recruitment process. And one of the things that I know that we try our best at GAP to enforce whenever we're talking about working with community partners, we talk about being collaborative. We talk about the fact that, when we're coming to the table, yes, we need to ensure that what we're doing is going to be mutually beneficial for not only us, the research organization, but for the community partner and for the community at large, right? But I want to progress the conversation, and Constantina, I want you to chime in on this. Given your experience, what has been the biggest challenge you faced in mobilizing community partners to support inclusive clinical research? And can you share a success story that's emerged from overcoming this challenge?
Right. Well, I believe everything is about education. In the Latino community in the United States, unfortunately, we have a huge number of individuals who have 4-6 years of school. And then we have a community with the challenges are sometimes many myths and some ideologies that are coming from the cultural front, okay? So starting educating and make awareness on the Latino community in regards to Alzheimer's disease and other dementias has been everyday work, and like I hear before it here, it takes time, but also it takes, we have to have in mind what is the element that is building trust in our community, okay? And a great model that we found out is the community health workers, because they live in the neighborhoods we want to target. And we started educating since the Latino communities in the United States focus on their cultural issues, cultural beliefs, like, okay, my father forgets things because he's part of the age. No, this is not part of the age. Or maybe because he was not good in his life when he was young. We know this now. And maybe a surprise for some of you, but this is what's happening. So with the community health workers who are a member of the community that is not licensed to practice in a full qualified healthcare professional, who works in association with the local healthcare system as a frontline agent of change, helping to reduce health disparities in unserved communities, we start with community health workers. And I know Alzheimer Association started in California many years ago, and they were wonderful with the community health workers. So what we did is, because they were not licensed or certified, what we did is, in collaboration with the City Colleges of Chicago, and with the funds of HRSA, Health Resources and Services Administration, HRSA, federal grant of $2.2 million came to us. We received it from HRSA just to certify under the City Colleges of Chicago the community health workers. And right now we can see a huge change after those 3 years in collaboration with the colleges, because they are ready to go outside and pass the message and start the recruitment, change the idea about what is really clinical trials. First of all, the Latino community didn't even know what's a clinical trial. That's why they didn't participate, because they didn't know. So we are changing all this. In the last 2 years, we have graduated in training in providing field work to 198 community health workers.
See, thank you so much, Constantina. I was just clicking on Tia's face because I wanted to just pivot to you, Tia. Do you have a success story that you would like to share that's arisen from a challenge?
You know, I think I look at it from the lens of what was a challenge. So like we have, and when we look at clinical trials and engagement, we know that we have an issue with diversity, and we look at sometimes just race, but also I think we should look at gender. And so I could share an experience where, you know, we know that Black men are not engaging in clinical trials, right? Especially those over 50, because I mean, their trust in America is already that big picture. And so we're trying to narrow it down. And so that pathway to their trust in the healthcare system is a long and winding path. And so I don't think it really started off as a trying to get Black men to engage in clinical trials and research. But when I took this role at the association some years ago, I was very intentional about events that we had were in communities where Black people worked and played and prayed and lived. And we started doing some engagement with our Divine Nine, and we had our Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity come out. And it was just really an organic flow of first education and awareness, which each of us have spoken about. And that really then impacted them about how they really could play a role of getting this information out. What is awareness? What is education? Why is early diagnosing and detection so important? And what role they could play. And then it just kind of led to a member, you know, wanting to get involved with clinical trials and research and to learn more. And he did. And it was wonderful because he went through all the steps. And I think it was positive that he was not accepted into this clinical trial, because then he came back and said, you know, I did all the steps and I wasn't even accepted. But then he was able to say he could speak to the integrity of clinical trials and research, right? And so then he went back and talked to the brothers about those steps and how he felt. And even he said when he went to the space, he was like, I opened the office door and I was like, oh, there's some Black people in here, you know, and he shared all of that from his lens. And I think that's much more impactful than coming from me or you and anyone else. And so again, it wasn't, I started off trying to get more Black men involved in clinical trials and research, but that was just that flow of that community engagement and research that kind of Dr. Ren was speaking on. It just happens, right? And then those next steps are how can I now be involved is what he had, and he got involved himself.
Thank you so much for that. So quick plug for GAP, I will let you know that when you're talking about that, it just makes me think about, we have a program called the Citizen Scientist Awards, where we highlight various folks that have interacted with or research sites and experienced some angle of Alzheimer's research. And they they just want to go and shout from the rooftops, this is my experience, and my people wake up and just know that this is for us. This is something that's going to help us. This is going to really improve our quality of life if we're able to improve or expand upon what health resources that are available to us. All right. So Renarda, Dr. Jones, I wanted to just throw out to you, diverse research now focuses on expanding racial and ethnic diversity in clinical trials. So what are some innovative ways your organization is leveraging partnerships with community organizations to increase representation in research?
Yes, thank you for the question. For us, community engagement and outreach is number one. That's the number one thing we do. And so we're constantly talking to community-based organizations that would join us in serving the community, because that's what we see it as, serving the community. And so we do that by having regular community events. Of course, the community needs to be able to see us, see what we're doing, hear from us consistently. This is how we're building trust. So we have a event now that we do monthly, every fourth Thursday of the month in San Diego, which is where we're based, where we do a chow and chat. We call it chow and chat. It's a very similar to a lunch and learn, but we feed the community a free dinner. We bring them out to hear a health education. They hear from myself, where I'm talking about diverse research now, but then we also usually have a sponsor. So the sponsor is usually a researcher, or it could be a community-based organization who's joined us in that event. And we share with them about the work and then we have a discussion. That's like the most important part of the event, is that we're discussing with the community, kind of bringing them to our table to include them in how we want to serve them and how we want to do the work, hear from them what's going to be best for them. So those events are monthly on like I said, on fourth Thursdays of the month, at the same time, so the community can know like, hey, they can bank on that, like, we're going to be here at this time on this day. I think that that's important as well, to like stay consistent. And then our organization is, because we are a nonprofit, we want to serve the community, continue to serve the community in this space. We have programs where we want to assist people who are ready to go forth in clinical studies. We want to assist them in that experience, so they can have a good experience in that. So we, again, take it back to education. We have a program called Safe Space Program, where we bring them into a private space with an advocate, and we educate about, go a little bit deeper about what clinical trials are, how they why they are, how they are, who conducts the clinical trials, why you might want to think about a clinical trial. We just really go deep, and in that safe space, we learn more about the participant as well. They're a little bit more, they're not so hesitant with us, right? Because we're one-on-one, and we're providing that intimate space for them to really open up to us. So we provide that space. And then if they are willing to move forth in trials, we will help them look for trials, help to suggest trials that they might want to get involved in. Because in that safe space, they're usually telling us about, their health conditions and what might be going on. So then our second program is called the Study Buddy Program, where we actually will have an advocate. We will assign an advocate with them to go with them to visits, if they are enrolled in a study. Once we, if they get screened and enrolled, we have an advocate that will actually go to visits with them, check on them bi-weekly, just to like empower them, to make them feel comfortable in this space, giving them this good experience, right, in clinical research. So then because if they have a good experience, they're going to share that. They're going to share that with their family and friends. And that is going to, you know, hopefully help them think about getting into a study. So
yeah, so absolutely, word of mouth does wonders, right? Just the other day, I had to fix one of my shoes, and one of my really close friends said, "Oh, I have a spot just around the corner that I always go to fix my shoes. Now I go." Because I was like, I'm not really used to this area. So I'm in the Orlando area, and I'm from Kingston, Jamaica. So I know where to go to fix my shoes in Jamaica, but for the Orlando area, no. But let me not go off on a tangent. Constantina, I wanted to go back to something you mentioned earlier. So one of the things that I think of when you talked about working with the community health workers, I think that's an excellent strategy, especially because one of the things that they do is they do try to be an ally to people as well, to help people feel safe and help people feel like, yes, you can speak with me, you can share with me your concerns, and let me walk with you and try and figure out what's your best options, right?
Correct. You say it very clear. But yeah, but during the last years, we were training community health workers in regards Alzheimer's disease and clinical trials in different cities in the United States, different cities in California, in Florida, in Texas, in New York, and always what we're doing is we also work and collaborate with universities and community clinics that are on the Latino community. So for example, in LA, we collaborate with UCLA and WellMed clinics. And then in New York, we were working with Bellevue hospitals in the consulates of Mexico, Peru, and Ecuador, because they have a large community from Ecuador. And this is how we go. We go straight to the community, but we don't let them be alone when we are not there anymore. So that we want to be sure that they have where to go and what to ask for. And I just want to mention, Paula, the barriers that we are talking about, the Latino community that we have during the years and analysis and asking people, well, okay, why you don't participate if you know what is a clinical trial? And the barriers are that what they think is participating will take time away from my work. And we are talking that the Latino community is a huge number of families that are working as laborers. And they are afraid of that. They participating will take time from caring because sometimes they carrying the grandchildren and what they gonna do with them if they gonna spend a day in a clinical trial. And another one is I don't have health insurance. And they are very scared about it. And this is a very good point about health insurance because that's why this is one of the reasons that they don't take the loved ones that have a memory problem until it's very late. Okay. The other thing is the most common. I don't speak English and I'm afraid participate due to side effects. And in particular, what we find out, believe it or not, when they hear the words clinical trials, they are afraid of injections. And I mean, is this what it is? This is what our community health workers model working on to take out all those barriers to participation and shift the paradigm of what these clinical trials.
So let me just, oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, I just want to add that we work all the times with the caregivers because the caregivers in the Latino community are family members.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, you know, one of the things that I really like is for us, one of the things I think of when collaborating with community partners is trying to help the wider community have a better understanding of how the clinical research world operates. We do try to kind of build on their social capital. We bring in the knowledge, we bring in that understanding of this is what we really represent. We are trying to bring resources that sometimes aren't readily available when you separate from clinical research. Some of the things we talk about is how long does it take to just get access to a neurologist or someone who is an expert in understanding dementia and Alzheimer's disease. But within the realm of clinical research, especially with a research organization that focuses on Alzheimer's research, they'll be able to have conversations, candid conversations about this is what I'm experiencing, this is what I'm concerned about. What's out there? What are my options? Right? I wanted to, just because we're running low on time, push to the last question. And Tia, I'm going to call on you. We all know that building trust takes time and sustained effort. So what strategies have you found effective in establishing and maintaining long-term partnerships with community organizations to ensure lasting support for inclusive clinical research?
So I want to circle back really quick to talk about that in community engagement and just add to the fact that when we are doing research in communities, I think it's important to layer it with resources that are tangible. So making sure they have access to internists if they have high blood pressure or diabetes, or if they have other resources for transportation. Really touching on what Constantina said, if they don't have health insurance, and now we've determined that they do have some cognitive issues, we don't just leave them high and dry, but we also are connected them to resources, because that to me is part of that community-based participatory research process. But when it comes to trust, Paula, I know we talk a lot about, some steps, and many of us talk about listening. And so I think listening, showing up, and being consistent are really important. But I also want to talk a little bit about being aware of the role that culture and religion play in communities, but how it changes over time and with generations. And I think that's really important when we're talking about consistency and sustainability. And so I'm going to share something that's not always a popular conversation, but often when researchers are going into the Black community, they talk a lot about utilizing those faith-based leaders and organizations. But really, if you're staying on trend and you want sustainability, we have to really look at that. Studies are showing that church attendance is continuing to decline, right? Especially amongst millennials. And it's not meaning that spirituality is declining, but that reliance on that faith-based leader and organization is changing. And we know with Gen Z, they're not really as focused on having a church home as they are with their spirituality. And it's wherever they are, it is. And so I think when we look at sustainability, besides listening and showing up, we have to be, agile, and we have to be aware of those trends that are happening that are related to culture and religion in communities of color, especially the Black community. And then we have to be consistent, because I think for that sustainability to happen, we must, get involved and stay involved, and not just be involved when it's important to us, right? Showing up during our work hours, right? But we're not showing up on the weekends and after hours, because that's where, to me, the real magic happens in building those relationships when we're talking about sustainability. So it's before the research project even begins, it's during, it's after, and everything in between, right? And so I think if we are really going to be guided by our deliverables, our deliverables for our funding or our performance indicators, then we're never going to reach that space where we really have that true relationship and that sustainability. Because if you're in research, there's going to be another clinical trial coming down the pathway, right? And so you're not going to be able to circle back to those folks that you were engaging with if you parachuted in and you parachuted out and they didn't see you again. And so I think those are some of the things we have to really continue to talk about if we want that sustainability in those communities.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So Renarda and Constantina, I'd love to hear if you have anything to add. But before, folks, I wanted you to just be aware that we are at that point where if you have any questions that you would like to ask of any of our panelists, feel free to drop it in the chat box right now, and we'll see how much we can answer before we transition to our next session. Constantina, I'll grab you first.
Oh my God, good, okay.
Oh, I was asking you to add if you had anything to add to that last question.
Well, for me and for our community of leaders, I would say health leaders in the field, it's very important that whatever we're doing is we have to always to think about now what. So if we invite, for example, one of the tools that we use is to meet with the people is a memory screening in Spanish. When we offer memory screening in Spanish, the community come and they really want to participate, but we use this as a tool of education. So when we do something like that, we have to have the resources in the community, clinicals, experts, everything. Because if they find out that there are really problems, then now what? That's what I'm saying. Now what? And we have to be ready for the now what? What's the next step?
And just to add, I'll just say three like main words. Consistency, we have to be consistent, transparent with community members, and honest about what we're really trying to do. They really have to understand as well. That's a good word too. They really have to understand the problem, you know, why this is a problem, why they need to get involved. A lot of times community doesn't understand why, the why. And we need to make sure we continue to repeat the why and show them. And even one of the things that I share in my presentations, I share with them about different drugs that have come out to market that have been less effective in Black and Brown populations because we were not participating in the research. They need to know that. No, they're not going to know that just, this is not common knowledge. So we have to educate and share these things with them so they can say, oh, you know what, wow, okay, I never thought about that. You know, so we have to continue to have these conversations and normalize. This is another one of my favorite words. Normalize this conversation.
Yeah.
It's not, you know, it's a valuable part of healthcare, your healthcare journey. Let's normalize this conversation and normalize it in being an option.
Absolutely. So I want to thank you all so much. I'm looking in the chat and I don't see any questions. I'm not sure if everyone has joined through the Hoover platform and is using that chat. So I'm in Zoom right now, so I can only see the Zoom chat. Does anyone have a question? If anything, you can come off mute and ask your question. We have about 5 minutes.
While they're thinking about it,
Okay.
Paula, I love what both Constantina and Dr. Renarda Jones were stating. I want to add a little bit also to that why, because I think that why is so important. And I love for folks to understand that we often contextualize, you know, systemic racism and discrimination to history, past history, you know, and there is a contemporary issue, you know, now. And so I've been to events where people have minimized and they don't know they're minimizing how we really feel about, you know, contemporary racism, discrimination. And so that why sometimes is the lens of, you know, folks saying, you know, we didn't matter when you were building this industry, and we didn't matter when you were thinking about policies and regulations. And so why do we matter now? That suspicion is real. You know, why do we matter? And so it's not always like, oh, you want to contribute to the legacy of your community and your population. We want to know why we matter now. So we have to do our due diligence in reminding Black populations and Black people that they matter overall. and then lean into why they matter in clinical trials and research. And so just want to share that part of it as well with the why.
I love.
I see we have a question from Tara Tang. So,
hi, everyone. Thank you so much for a wonderful discussion. My question for you all is, how have you navigated expectations within the community? So like what a site, particularly within, like say maybe hospital context, university context, rules, red tape, and everything that comes with that, in working with the community, right? You know, there's some things that, you know, different rules, IRBs say that we can and cannot do in a community, or we can only go up to a certain point without it looking coercive or something like that. You know, so how's that conversation been for you all?
Well, for me, I let the organization and the environment set the tone. I really am a community partner. And so when I'm going into anyone's space, I always consider myself, even if I've been going to the AME church for 3 years, I'm a visitor. And so I let them set the tone of what can and cannot happen. But I will always encourage folks that want to partner and go into community and organizations to do their research first before they reach out to me. Because often they know very little about the organization, the community, the uniqueness, you know, and so they go in with this monolithic type of lens. And to me, that's not acceptable. So that might be my expectation that I give back to them, know where we're going and who we're dealing with, because they have trust in me as a community partner in the Alzheimer's Association. I've built this trust. So I can't have you coming with me and you haven't done some of your homework. So when it comes to the organization, I let them determine what those barriers look like as far as boundaries or where you can and cannot do. But my expectation is that you go in knowing something and really understanding that community partner or organization that you're reaching into. And I'll open it up to the other panelists.
So I'm a community organization, based organization as well, Diverse Research Now, and we again, it kind of goes back to being honest and transparent with the participants or the potential participants, right? The community members, these are all potential people that could go into a study, right? But it's about educating them. Again, we kind of go into education about the whole thing. I've been a clinical research professional for 20 plus years, so I know the process very well. And so we educate the community member about that process. So they know about the IRB. They know how long it might take, because it does, like the red tape is real, right? So it might take a long time to get things off the ground with the IRB and with these sponsors and their delays. And it's about being honest with the community to say like, hey, yeah, we're still waiting for something, you know, we're so sorry, you know, just explain it. You know, just really be upfront and honest and explain what really is going on. There's no reason to keep that from them.
Well, I believe that we have to have a moral responsibility with our mission, always. And in our, I agree with Dr. Ren and Tia because we are on the same boat many times, or maybe always, we are on the same boat. So it's very important to be there as a leaders or as the individuals that we are in the front line of the mission. We have to be there always. And for example, it's Saturday, and if there is an event, well, wear a t-shirt, a pair of jeans, and go and work with the community and work with them to know what is the pulse of the community, what they concern about it. Listening them is so important. So we can communicate you and other professionals what is going on there, why they feel how they feel, why they act like they act. So be very we have to be very have a moral responsibility in our mission to keep that credibility in our neighborhoods, and be honest. Be always very honest about how we feel about it. I always say to my colleagues, the Latino community is do not hide your questions. Do not hide the way that you want to be treated or see or perceive. You know, because for well-being of our country, for the well-being of our country. We cannot work separated from each other. So that's what I strongly believe.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So we're at time where we need to wrap. So thank you everyone for joining. I want to let you know that this has been a great conversation. One of the things that I can relate to, Constantina, is why I like working with community partners. It's that candidness, especially when you are going to engage with a community that you might not identify with. You want to make sure that you're showing up correctly. You want to ensure that you're showing up aware. You want to ensure that what you're showing up with is something that people can receive it, right?
Right.
And so community partners are critical to helping us figure out exactly what's the best approach, what's the appropriate approach, and what's the right time. Now, for the rest of you, don't let the conversation stop here. Through the Hoover app, you may connect with our panelists. I encourage you to do so. Reach out to them, exchange contact information, link with them on LinkedIn. To Tia, Constantina, and Renarda, thank you so much.
Thank
And
you
for
for
the rest
having
of
us.
you, in the next 2
So
minutes,
much.
we have our, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Yes.
you for having us.
All right, starting in the next 2 minutes, our keynote speaker, Dr. Goldie Smith-Bird, will be presenting. So please do not leave us, just switch over to that session. Bye.
Bye-bye.